Hello and welcome to the Habits of the Wealthiest People debrief. Today we're going to cover in the next couple of minutes, number one, your assessment results. And the idea here is to help you remove the guesswork of whether you have the habits of the wealthy or the habits of the poor, but more importantly, to put you on the path to transforming your life. That's video number one. It's a very quick debrief, and I think you'll find value in that. If you choose to, we're going to also introduce you to a simple wealth strategy in video number two that millionaires and billionaires use to immediately improve their finances. Now here's what's cool, is this works even for non-millionaires. It's one of the fastest ways to start transforming your wealth, and we're going to share this video and these insights absolutely for free. And for now, allow me to do a quick introduction. My name is Jim Bunch, and I'm the founder of a coaching company that has helped over 10,000 people in 45 countries transform their lives. We have a mission, and that is to help people like you by helping them with happiness, health, and wealth, and spreading that across the world. And so far, we've been having amazing success. So, today, we're here to debrief the habits of the wealthiest people. And to give you a little background on where this comes from, is a lot of people that we meet want to become millionaires or billionaires. They believe that that's the path to freedom. And while that's true, it does help, there are other things that we want you to take a look at. Well, in today's webinar, in today's video, I want to share with you some of the habits of the wealthiest people, but also where they came from, because they came from a variety of backgrounds. You know, people like Carlos Slim, who's now worth $73 billion, and Bill Gates worth $67 billion, and Larry Ellison, the founder of Oracle, who's worth $43 billion, of course, Warren Buffett, many of you have heard of. You know, these are billionaires based on the 2013 Forbes World's Billionaire list, and the interesting thing is, most of them did not become wealthy because their family handed them their wealth. They worked for it. They earned it. They thought and acted differently than most people do. And the amazing thing is, this opportunity to become a millionaire or billionaire is available for just about everybody. You know, today, according to Forbes, based in 2013, there were 31 million millionaires. There are 1,426 billionaires. And as I already mentioned, the majority of these people, well, they didn't come from wealth. They created it on their own. As a matter of fact, you may have even heard of these rags to riches stories of John Paul DeJoria, who's now worth $4 billion after building his company, the Paul Mitchell hair care products, by going door to door and making sales. Or Oprah Winfrey, who's worth $2.9 billion, as some of you know, was raised in rural poverty and ran away from home as a teen due to abuse. And then, of course, Howard Schultz, who was raised in the projects in Brooklyn and built one of the largest brands in the world called Starbucks. So I'm going to share with you the insights that have come from studying some of the world's wealthiest people, because after all, if you want to create wealth, you don't study the poor, you study the wealthy people to find out exactly what they've done so you can replicate their results. Now, just for clarity, I want to share with you that a lot of this study comes from Thomas C. Corley's study of the daily habits of 233 wealthy people and 128 poor people. And just for clarification, the wealthy are defined as having an earnings of at least $160,000 a year and holding at least $3.2 million in assets. Now, just for clarification, those assets are not held in just real estate, because a few years ago, everybody could become a millionaire by basically buying a home. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about people who have a decent earning and they've accumulated a decent net worth. The poor, according to Thomas Corley's study, are people who are defined as having an income of under $30,000 per year and less than $5,000 in assets. Now, there's a lot of people, especially here in the United States right now, that have been struggling financially, and the reason we put this video together and this assessment is we wanted to help people start to turn around their mindsets and turn around their habits so that they could model the wealthy and put themselves in position to win financially. So let's dive right in and talk about number one is they have a routine. If you take a look at the wealthy people, there are some consistent patterns, some consistent traits that show up in almost all of them. When we say all of them, no, not necessarily. but almost all of them maintain a to-do list. As a matter of fact, 81% of the wealthy people maintain a to-do list, which allows them to take all the thoughts out of their mind and stay focused on what's most important to execute in the day in and day out basis. Now, the shocking piece is only 9% of the poor people maintain a to-do list. So, clue number one, start maintaining a to-do list. It's a way to take your thoughts, put them into paper, and then move them into action. Now, this next one I found really interesting is that 44% of the wealthy wake up at least 3 hours before they go to work. So if they go to work at 8 a.m., they're waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning, while only 3% of the poor are actually doing that. So the question you have to ask yourself is, why? Why are the wealthy getting up earlier than the poor? Well, probably because they're inspired, probably because they are focused, probably because they realize that planning and preparing to win is 90% of the battle. So take a look at your habits and ask yourself, have you been rolling out of bed, hitting the alarm clock, scraping by, or if you changed your patterns a little bit, maybe you got to bed a little earlier, maybe you got up a little earlier, you might prepare yourself to win. Now here's another one that's rather interesting is over half or 63% of the wealthy listen to audiobooks during commutes. Now, you've got to ask yourself the question, why? They're already smart, they're already wealthy. Why are they listening to audiobooks? Because wealthy people understand that learning gives them an edge. Not only does it allow them to focus their minds, it allows them to stay top of current events. It allows them to stay educated and allows them to have knowledge to help them network better. The more you read, the more likely you are to enter into stimulating conversations and to build your network. And remember, your net worth is related to your network. So having something stimulating to communicate about is often a way to build value in your network. All right. The next one is networking of 5+ hours or more each month. Now, I just want to clarify, when we talk about 79% of the wealthy networking 5 or more hours a month, what they're not doing is they're not going to these networking parties and handing out their business cards and trying to get sales from other people. What they are, in fact, doing is they're looking for ways to create value with their networks. So, of course, they introduce themselves to new people, but specifically what they're doing is they are actually being interested in other people instead of just being interesting. Now, there's a big distinction there, the difference between being interested in others and being interesting yourself. You see, when they show up to network, what they're actually doing is they're looking for ways to create value for other people. So they ask questions, they get engaged, they try to find ways to connect other people with their other networks. In other words, they create value. And they don't do this some of the time. They do this quite frequently, 5 or more hours each month, whereas the poor, on average, are about 16% of them are networking 5 or more hours a month. In other words, the wealthy are staying in circulation, the poor's habits are keeping them out of circulation. Again, another one of the things that was assessed, which was a big shocker to me, is 88% of the wealthy read for 30 minutes or more each day. And 2% of the poor read. Now, we've all heard that education gives you a leg up on the competition. We know that, right? But to see the difference between 88% and 2% to me was quite shocking. So this is one of the highest things that we see the wealthy doing is investing in their learning every single day. And of course, it makes sense. 86% of them actually love to read, whereas only 26% of the poor love to read. So to encapsulate this slide, this is all about the routines. And I would ask you to take a look at your assessment and really dive deep and ask yourself, is there one or two of these areas that over the next week or 21 days or 90 days, you could begin to focus on improving? Could you maintain a to-do list? Could you get up a little bit earlier? Could you invest in audiobooks or reading or networking and meeting more people? These are simple ways to guarantee that you start to improve your life and, of course, improve your wealth. Now, the next one that we looked at was, are they healthy? And a lot of people think that wealthy people don't really care about their health. They eat a lot, they eat all kinds of food, they eat out all the time. While that's true in some cases, what we found was pretty interesting is the wealthy exercise aerobically 4 days a week. Why do they do this? Well, it keeps them mentally sharp, it keeps their energy levels high, and it allows them to get up earlier, stay focused more, and to continue to network and put more energy into their lives and into their businesses. All right? The poor, only 23% of them actually invest in their health. The wealthy, 76% of them are exercising 4 days a week. So pretty shocking, right? But again, success leaves clues. Now take a look at this. You probably would expect this, but let's just look at the stats. How much junk food are the wealthy eating? Well, less than 75% of them eat 300 calories or more a day in junk food. But look at the poor. Almost 100% of the poor are eating junk food. And of course, what does junk food do to your mind? Right? 97% of the poor are eating junk food. Well, mentally, it doesn't help. It slows them down. It makes them have less energy overall, and it actually creates addictions to other things that lower their likelihood of success. So again, it's not just what you put into your mind, it's what you put into your body that is going to make a difference. Now let's take a look at the television habits of the wealthy versus the poor. 67% of the wealthy watch less than 1 hour of television every day. How much do the poor? 6% of the poor watch less than 1 hour a day. So the wealthy are consuming way less TV than the poor. Now what type of TV? Reality TV is consuming the poor. They're watching shows about other people doing things with their life instead of actually getting out and living their life. Do you realize that if you invested 1 hour a day, every day, in educating yourself or reading instead of watching TV, at the end of the year, you could have what's equivalent to a college degree. 1 hour a day of investing in putting healthy, positive things into your mindset. You know, it may sound simple, but look at the stats. Look at the data. The wealthy have different habits. And let's follow here into our last piece of the assessment is what about their goals? You know, we've all heard that you're more likely to reach your goals if you have written goals, right? Well, let's take a look at the stats. 67% of the wealthy write down their goals. Only 17% of the poor write down their goals. So again, a big variance, a big difference there. What about the wealthy? They have the ability to focus on accomplishing a specific goal. They're laser beam focused. 80% of them choose to focus on one goal and drive that to completion, whereas only 12% of the poor believe that that's the right strategy. How about this? How many of them believe in lifelong education and self-improvement? 86% versus only 5%. That's probably one of the biggest variances or gaps that we see in the difference between the wealthy and the poor. There's 81% difference between what the wealthy do, which is invest in improvement, versus what the poor do. Remember, success leaves clues. And how about this? What about their belief that their habits, good habits, create opportunity? In other words, the more good habits they have, the more likely they are to have bigger opportunities. 84% of the wealthy believe that, only 4% of the poor. So an 80% variance between the wealthy and the poor. And how about this? What about their belief that the bad habits create a negative impact on their life? To me, this seems like a no-brainer, but the reality is this. 76% of the wealthy believe that bad habits create a negative impact, and only 9% of the poor believe that. So invest a couple of minutes. Look back over your assessment. Look at your debrief and ask yourself, are there areas of your life that you can shift, change, or alter? Not in 90 days or a year, but now, today, immediately. Could you start to invest in learning more? Could you start to invest in your health a little bit more? Could you spend a little less time watching TV? Could you spend a little more time educating yourself? Well, here's the simple reality. Following these traits and these habits won't necessarily make you rich. But guess what? It's worth a shot, right? It's worth a shot, and you've got to start somewhere to create momentum and success in your life. So here's my simple question for you as we wrap this up. You know, this video was all about reviewing your assessment results and looking at whether you have the habits of the wealthy or the habits of the poor. This next video that I'd love to invite you to is a really simple and quick introduction to what I think is one of the simplest wealth strategies that both millionaires and billionaires use to immediately improve their finances. When I say immediately, I mean within 24 hours. And here's the great news. This works even for non-millionaires. You don't have to be a millionaire or billionaire to do this strategy. As a matter of fact, we've had thousands of people who have implemented this next strategy that I want to share with you, and in 24 hours or less, they have put on average $1,200 back into their pockets using this one little simple wealth strategy. So if you're curious and you want to learn a little bit more like the wealthy do, simply click on this button below to get instant access to video number 2, and I'll look forward to connecting with you there.